So, welcome, guys, to our very first episode of front end web development. So, this is just an introduction into what front end development is all about. So, when we talk about front end development, we talk about that part of development that has to do with a client side, outward facing part of web development, like the websites you see out there, they are all products of front end development, whatever the website might be all about. So they all have an element of front end development. And how would you build such a website? What do you need? How do you begin as someone who doesn't know anything about programming or front end development? So we're going to tackle some of the most important concepts as pertaining to front end development in this short introduction. So we're going to be starting with what programming really is. So the biggest question right now is, what is programming? And the shortest answer you're going to get out there, the straightforward answer that cuts out every other definition you might have seen out there, is just simply: programming is the process of giving instructions to a computer so it can perform specific tasks without mistakes. Short, simple, straight to the point. You provide information to the computer, it gives you an output. You provide detailed instructions to the computer. So because the computer has this Gigo and Gigo concept, which simply means garbage in, garbage out. Computer simply gives you a replica of what you gave it. So the dictionary definition of what programming is will tell you that programming is a process of preparing an instructional program for a device. But what does that really mean? Because you're talking about preparing an instructional program for a device. So, what one concept about programming that you have to always remember, that it has to be accurate. Whatever you're providing your machine has to be accurate. Let's take, for instance, you give a 2-year-old a Lego set to piece together without any other instructions. You just give the 2-year-old, say, you put this together, put this Lego set together, and at the end of the day, let's see what it looks like. Without detailed instruction, that 2-year-old might successfully put that Lego set together. But what time was spent in doing that? How many errors did that 2-year-old encounter? What, how many trials and failures did that 2-year-old go through? So at the end of the day, he might not he might not put the whole Lego piece together correctly, and the output will be unintended. It will be an unintended result. Same thing with programming. If you don't give it the right code, the right program, the output is always going to be flawed. So when we're talking about programming, we have to understand that whichever programming language we're going to learn on this course is non-native to the computer. The computer processes its own internal information differently. It uses numerical processing of bytes in ones and zeros to process whichever data you feed it in. Whether you're programming in JavaScript, you're programming in Python, you're programming in Rust, the computer takes in that program you fed it and converts it to bytes of ones and zeros. So when it does that, it speeds up the whole internal computational process and provides the data you requested for, or transforms that data and gives you the output expected or unexpected if there's an error in your instruction. And this internal data native to the computer is called the machine code, because you feed it, you acting as a programmer, you're acting as a middleman between the computer and the public right now. So you're acting as a translator. So that's what programming essentially is. You acting as a translator between the public, between the client and the computer. And how do you manage to become an efficient translator between the computer and the public? By learning a programming language. And what are programming languages? What is this programming language? Programming languages are simply tools we use to write instructions for computers. Think of them as simply English French or Spanish, think of it like you're learning a different language right now. There are going to be the usual challenges you might expect to encounter when you're learning a new language. Uh, and the type of errors you're bound to encounter at first, even as you go further into programming, are basically errors a typical newbie to a new language is going to encounter. Take, for example, you are on a vacation in Italy and you there inside a restaurant and you want some Italian pasta. You've been taking lectures in Italian, but you're not fluent. But at the end of the day, you want something specific from that restaurant. But due to your inability to confidently convey, to properly convey your request to the chef, you might have your order a little bit mixed up at the end of the day because you're not fluent in Italian. The same thing, same problems you have with programming, but as time goes on, these are things you easily be able to spot and debug along the line. So you might be asking, what programming language do I start with? Before we get into that, you have to understand that there are various kinds of programming languages, various types of programming languages. There are the high level languages, which are easy to understand by humans. These are the languages that were built for you and I to communicate to the computer in. These high level languages are what we are going to be learning, and they include languages like JavaScript, Python, and JavaScript for obviously creating interactions between the user, that's the end user of a web project, a website, and the computer, creating an interaction between them. So low-level languages are languages used by the internal workings of the computer, and they include languages like ASML and machine code. These are languages native to the computer, and they are closer to how computers think. So they are harder for humans to write. And scripting languages include languages like JavaScript and Python, because they are used on the back end to communicate with the computer. They are used in right to be able to write scripts to help to communicate with the computer. And you have the Bash and script writing too. So markup languages are like the skeletons, the building boards on which mostly every website are built on. And one example of a markup language is HTML, though they aren't really considered as programming languages. Markup languages are not really considered as programming languages. Nonetheless, they are very, very important to your journey as a beginner in web development. So these are important concepts you will have to treat in the course of this course. So it's important for you to know what data structures are, how concurrency is important to you as a programmer, what the big O notation is, recursion, loops, arrays, parallelism, what a stack is, and what a queue is. These are important concepts we are going to touch subsequently in this tutorial. So for now, bye for now. I'll see you in the next slide.